GM fam, it's Daito here, and I want to walk you through the final build that I'm using in order to clear Tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons in Season 1 of Diablo 4. Now, this is after the latest patch, I think it's 1.1.1 or something like that, that finally nerfed the poison imbuement for rogues. So they quote-unquote fixed the aspect of venomous, blistering, blah blah blah, and they made it so that it actually only procs off of critical hits with imbued skills. So prior to the fix, it was proccing on all attacks, and so now it came back down to earth, and poison is out of the game. So that means we, along with probably 95% of the classes out there this season, are running the Barber for our Wrathful Gem. Now, I have to give a huge shout out to, I think it's M1PY, and also Lucky Luciano. If you're not already following them on YouTube, definitely subscribe. But I'm using a hybrid or a combination of their two builds. And so I want to walk through where I kind of tweak what they do in order to fit my particular play style. So first off, we're starting with the Helm. It's running with Shared Misery, and that's important so that we can spread out the crowd control that we use in this build. In terms of stats, the only thing that I would change here is that instead of Dexterity, I would get reduced cooldown reduction. Here on the chest, we're running with Quickening Fog. This allows us to drop grenades every time that we flash, and you can see later on, we need those grenades in order to trigger our frostbitten aspect so that everything freezes as soon as we engage a pack of elites. In terms of stats here, I would change the all stats on the armor into another damage reduction type, like damage to close enemies. Otherwise, you definitely need total armor. Here, we already mentioned the aspect of the frostbitten. This is the most important piece in the entire build. It's what really gives you that sustainability while you're in the Tier 100 dungeons. And then on top of that, whenever monsters are chilled or frozen, you're doing a lot of extra damage to them whenever you have things like Frigid Finesse and whatnot. These gloves are the nuts, so it's got everything that we want. Lucky hit, crit chance, plus to Twisting Blades, and then of course attack speed so that we can keep on swinging faster and proc all of our beautiful lucky hit things. We're running Umbrus on the Adventurer's Pants. So Umbrus is really cool, and Lucky Luciano actually doesn't use it, but M1PY does. And I'm actually a huge fan because it allows you to get a Dark Shroud, and then those dark shrouds also serve as damage reduction and movement increase. And you'll see that once we go into the skill tree a little bit more. But I'm actually not running Might. So Might gives you 20% damage reduction. Well, if you have 5 shrouds surrounding you, and each one of those is giving you, gosh, I think 8% damage reduction, that's 40% damage reduction. So when I'm running Umbrus, I don't even have the need to run Might. So I think it's really cool. And then on top of that, when you're trying to speed run, tier 100s, the movement speed is nice too. In terms of the stats on these pants, it's the dream. I got a super high roll on damage reduction while injured, which is awesome. And that helps out in a pinch whenever you get knocked down pretty low. But total armor here is a must. We're running Penitent Greaves, nothing surprising here. We're running our accelerating aspect on our crossbow. In terms of stats, it'd be nice if that damage to crowd-controlled enemies was critical strike damage, but otherwise, this is a really good piece as well. My amulet could use some help. Instead of that plus percent to dexterity, I'd like it to be like maybe plus to exploit or something else that's a little bit more on the attack side of things. But again, total armor is critical here too. And then we're putting in disobedience in order to get us over that, like I think it's like a 30,000 armor cap or something once you're buffed. But you can see here from our stats, like we are living the freaking dream. On paper, we've got close to 14,000 attack power, and then our armor is close to 10,000 too. I believe all that you need for armor is something like 9,750 or something is the on paper pre-buffed armor cap. And so yeah, we're right there. And then other than that, the Wrathful Heart that we're running is the Barber. Now, I've tested different Barbers, like in terms of whether it's a 2-second Barber or a 3-second or a 4-second. I kind of like the 4-second the best, and that's mostly because when it comes to bosses and huge single targets, like I've seen it work out best when you have like a 4-second Barber as opposed to a 2-second one. Some people tell you that 3 seconds is the sweet spot, especially because our exploit Paragon Board, keeps things vulnerable for 3 seconds. You can go that route if you like, but on those single targets and those final bosses on the Nightmare dungeons, you might find yourself in some trouble. You can even see in this video that the last boss takes us quite a bit of time. Now, some people swap out gear in order to optimize the final boss. So if you really wanted to do that, like you could take out, your aspect and your weapon here and throw in something like, the aspect that gives you increased damage while you're standing still. And then you could swap out a ring, that doesn't have, damage mitigation like this revenge or something and put in something else that gives you some more oomph. But I'm not really into the gear swapping mid-fight dungeon type thing, so I don't really bother. So on the rings, we're looking for Lucky Hit, Crit Strike, Vulnerable, and Crit Damage. And so you can see this ring is struggling too. I actually have one in my stash that has the quad, but I don't have any gold in order to re-roll things. So we are actually putting in the Loop of the Expectant here. Now, Lucky Luciano runs that aspect that gives you, I think up to a 20% damage increase depending on your primary resource. And so the cap on that is actually, 20%. But I found that, I don't always have, a full bar of, resources. And so I kind of like this Loop of the Expectant, or the Expectant aspect instead, because we're pretty much always taking advantage of that 20 or 30% increase to our core skill, which is Twisting Blades. The damage from all of our other skills really pales in comparison. So it's really this core skill that I want modified. And sometimes we're attacking so fast, you might get in you might get in 3 basic skill attacks before you actually hit your core skill, and then you're really taking advantage of this aspect, and I prefer it over the one that Lucky runs. We are running this Vicious Heart that drops stun grenades, so it's beautiful because with these two aspects right here, as soon as we dash in to a pack of elites, we're dropping those smoke grenades and these stun grenades, once they proc, and we're freezing the hell out of them with the frostbitten aspect. So it's really freaking cool. In here, we're running the Twisting Blades aspect, and I mentioned Revenge is pretty much the best thing that you can put in here, because it's both, damage reduction as well as a little bit of damage when it explodes. We are running Condemnation. I'm an idiot. I had a max roll 40% Condemnation, and I think I accidentally sold it or salvaged it or something. But it is what it is, and Condemnation is where it's at, and we're taking full advantage of our combo points. And then here we're throwing in Retribution as an aspect in order to kind of help with the damage mitigation on ranged mobs, which is really nice. And then on top of that, if you see a pack of ranged mobs that are kind of blasting at you, once they're stunned and you dash over to them and freeze them and you start hitting them, it's possible that, you spread that stun across the board, and it's really nice too. So huge fan of aspects and, Malignant Hearts that are both defensive and offensive, and this aspect of Retribution hits that category. If I could change anything here, I would change that damage to chilled enemies into critical strike damage. But otherwise, on both of our weapons, we want all stats and dexterity in order to trigger the bonuses on some of our rare nodes on the Paragon board. We're running combo points on the specialization, and here let's go through the skill tree because this is, again, a mishmash of those two people that I mentioned at the top of the video. So no surprise here, we're running Puncture. Here we're running Twisting Blades and then Dazing them, and then maxing out Siphoning Strikes and Sturdy. That's pretty standard. Here we're getting Shadow Step, and we want a Disciplined Shadow Step to reduce the cooltime anytime we hit an enemy that we haven't hit before. And that's just to make sure that we can actually stay alive when we get CC'd, multiple times by enemies in tier 100. Otherwise, if you're just speed farming lower tiers, then, it's kind of nice to just throw in Methodical Shadow Step and stun your targets. We got 1 point in dash, 1 in rapid gambits, and then this trick attacks point is so critical. Like, this was a stroke of genius the first time I saw someone put this in a build. We're hitting dazed targets all the time. And when you critically strike a dazed target, now they get knocked down. And then because we're running Shared Misery in our helmet, we're spreading that knockdown so often. It's a beautiful thing to see. And of course, we're putting Concussive in order to get increased critical strike chance against our targets. And that way we're proccing our Barber a lot more often. Now here is again where you see a variation from Lucky Luciano. This is a combination of Lucky Luciano and M1PY. So we are putting points into Smoke Grenade since we're triggering it so often with our aspects. And then we've only got, a couple of points in Poison Trap. But here, because we're running Umbrus and, generating Dark Shrouds, we're getting these points to take advantage of the Dark Shrouds that we generate. So here you can see, this is that 8% damage reduction per active shadow, and you can have up to 5 active shadows, and you pretty much always have 5 up because you're attacking and critting so often. So that's a 40% damage reduction compared to Might, that's only 20%. And then on top of that, we're getting increased movement speed for each Dark Shroud. I don't think I'll ever use another build with the Rogue that doesn't include Umbrus, because this is just so freaking cool to me. I like moving fast, and I like being tanky. Here, Lucky Luciano uses Consuming Shadows in order to generate extra energy with whenever you kill an enemy with shadow damage. This is brilliant because the Barber does shadow damage. M1PY does not use this. He's using like resource generation on his rings. I'm like, screw that. I really like what Lucky did here. And so I went the Consuming Shadows route. We've got some points into Precision Imbuement to increase our crit chance. Then, of course, we've got Frigid Finesse because our enemies are chilled and frozen all the time with that Frostbitten aspect. Over here, we've got Trap Mastery to increase our crit whenever we hit things with Trap. We're using Innervation to keep up our energy when we lucky hit. And then, of course, we're getting some Adrenaline Rush and Haste for increased attack speed or energy when needed. And now here, this is the great debate, right? Do you run Close Quarters or do you run Momentum? I'm running Momentum because I want that 20% increased damage reduction since I'm not running Might. I think it's overkill if you're running Umbrus, Might, and Momentum. I think you only need 2 out of those 3 for the damage reduction. So if I was running Might, I'd probably use Close Quarters instead to get that increased attack power or from the increased attack speed. Our Paragon board is basically, I think this is M1PY's old Paragon board. I actually like it better than the new. And then I do one slight variation from M1PY, and I'll take you through it in a second. But on the starter board, we're using versatility, and that's giving us extra bonuses to all of our magic nodes. So this armor and damage and everything is really getting a bump from versatility. Here we're running Diminish, and this is awesome because it's, again, giving a bonus to the rare nodes that are in range. So this is how we're increasing damage from our core skill and then getting a huge boost in armor. And armor is king. You're not going to get to 9,700 armor without like using these types of glyphs that boost rare and magical nodes. Here on this board, we're running Closer, and over here on the Exploit Weakness board, we're running Control, and over here, this is a stroke of genius. We're running Efficacy here that requires intelligence in order to activate the additional bonus. And the bonus from Efficacy is actually increasing the intelligence we get from this rare node. And it's activating it itself. Like, the int bonus that we're getting from Efficacy from this node is giving us the additional bonus from Efficacy. I just think that's the coolest freaking thing ever. Now, Efficacy does suck because its additional bonus is 20% to our imbuement skill effects. And we don't use any imbuements in this build. So you can see we're using Smoke Grenade, Poison Trap, Shadow Step, Dash, Puncture, and Twisting Blades. I still haven't found another glyph that I would still want to use here, even though we're not getting the bonus from that imbuement skill effects. But if you can find one, let me know. I thought about using, something like, what was it, like Fluidity or something, maybe? I don't know. But I still think it's okay, even though this isn't fully optimized. Now, this, I believe, once we get over to here, is where we start veering away from M1PY's Paragon Board. So we're running Devious in here to get more bonuses from our magic nodes, but M1PY, at least in this original take, wasn't using Tricks of the Trade. And I actually don't think they're using Tricks of the Trade in their latest Paragon Board either. But Lucky Luciano uses Tricks of the Trade, and I think it's a smart move because we're toggling in between our marksman and our cutthroat skills, or, to puncture and twisting blades all the freaking time. So we're constantly taking advantage of this 25 multiplicative damage increase. And I don't know how you could pass up on this. So M1PY instead will run up and get this spring-loaded node in order to reduce the cooldown on their trap skill. And I think they do that because they're running the Brutal Malignant Heart that uses the decoy, and we're not doing that. Instead, we're running the Vicious Malignant Heart that drops stun grenades. So I kind of like this route a lot better. But obviously, play along with your own play style. And then, of course, we're throwing Exploit into this last one here. So I've tried, for example, I think I tried Lucky Luciano's Paragon Board that they're using right now to clear tier 100s. And at least on paper, my gosh, these stats were nowhere near what they are now. I want to say my attack power dropped by 2,000. My armor dropped by 1,700 or something like that. Now, granted, what's on paper isn't everything, right? Maybe you're getting, some extra stats somewhere else in terms of, damage reduction and critical strike damage and whatnot. But I don't know. I'm a sucker for what I see in front of my face. And I like seeing big numbers on this stat screen right here. So I think that's the entire build. I've still got a few upgrades that I'm looking for in terms of rings. And I will mention, too, on your pants, I don't have the innate skill where Whenever you use a potion, you get 20% of your max health as a barrier. That's huge. That's very important. I really wish I had that on my pants because, you can see with our max life, we're running 14,000. I mean, a 20% barrier off of 14K is pretty freaking sweet every time you use a potion. That's going to be a huge bump for me in terms of survivability once I can get that innate stat on my pants. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video and the walkthrough. The next thing that I got on, my to-do list is to check out PvP. And I think it's going to be very similar to what I'm running here with a couple of tweaks here and there. I've never really done PvP in Diablo 4 yet, so I'm excited to get into that and share some videos and tips with y'all. But I'll catch you next time, fam. Until then, happy hunting.